Polar ice melting. Polar ice melting is when the ice in the polar caps melts due to heat. This causes a rise in sea levels, and that's why it's considered a global issue because it impacts so many different countries. And it's also considered a global issue because the melting of polar ice affects the climate and the environment of the planet as a whole. This is why polar ice melting is considered a global issue. The main cause of polar ice melting is the increase in global temperatures. As the Earth's surface warms, more ice will melt, causing more water to flow into the ocean and increasing sea level. As the sea level rises, more ice will melt and the process will continue, causing more problems for humans living close to the polar cap. What are the effects of polar ice melting in humans and animals? Interruption of migration to animals. Because this can lead to a loss of habitat for many animals that live in the polar regions, as well as disruption to their usual migration patterns. Many polar animals use the polar ice caps as their habitat and a source of food. They rely heavily on the ice caps for survival. When the ice cap starts to melt, it can disrupt the usual migration patterns of these animals as well as their ability to find food. Flood to humans. Like droughts, flooding also ruins crops. These are the only immediate effects of flood, but the long-term effects can be even worse. They can cause poverty, starvation, and displacement of people. This can lead to a breakdown in our society and cause other problems. Droughts to other areas to humans. When water levels rise on one part of the planet, they take away some of the water from other parts, which can lead to drought conditions to those other areas. This can be very bad as it can lead to food shortages, devastation to crops, and a lack of necessities. How are the Arctic and Antarctic regions affected? During polar ice melting, the polar regions around the Arctic and the Antarctic are affected greatly. The melting of these polar caps causes flooding to occur in those regions. This flooding can cause great harm to the environment, and this flooding can also cause certain animals to go extinct. What can possibly happen to us if we ignore polar ice melting? If we ignore polar ice melting, then we will suffer many consequences. These consequences will not just be local problems, but are also threats to the whole world. Many disasters can happen, like storms and wildfires, which can lead to loss of life and property damage. The melting of ice caps can also cause animal extinction issues all around the world, leading to habitat destruction and the loss of biodiversity. The melting of polar ice caps can also cause global warming as well.
What are the solutions and processes to this global issue? And, as an individual, how can we be responsible and what can we do to help? According to researchers, methane and carbon dioxide are the root of this phenomenon. They suggest that cutting methane emissions rapidly, along with CO2 reductions, could be our best hope to save summer sea ice this century and beyond. Tian San, the lead researcher in this study, stated that along with reducing CO2, cutting methane this decade gives us our best chance at preserving the vital part of our planet for generations to come. It is believed that the oil and gas industry is one of the leading sources of methane globally. Several studies have shown that the most accessible and cost-effective ways to achieve significant methane reductions are through industry actions such as capping the abandoned wells. To prevent our ice sheets from completely melting, government institutions and international organizations must also take strong measures to reduce pollution, deforestation, the use of fossil fuels, and mining operations. So, what can we do as an individual to help these researchers to prevent or slow down this phenomenon? Number 1. To take action to reduce the carbon footprint per individual. Reducing the carbon footprint per individual is the leading way to diminish the impact of climate change. Number 2. By saying no to plastics. Though plastics are not directly contributing to the melting of polar ice caps, they are indirectly contributing to climate change, which is a major factor in the melting of polar ice caps. The indirect contribution of plastics to climate change and the resulting melting of polar ice caps highlight the urgent need to reduce plastic production, use, and disposal. Transition to more sustainable alternatives. Number 3. Recycling. Recycling is believed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and the amount of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases keep heat in the atmosphere, and the Earth's temperature rises as a result that eventually leads to melting of glaciers. Number 4. Spreading awareness for protecting our glaciers and polar ice caps from melting. Number 5. Further, government agencies and international organizations must take strict actions against reducing pollution, deforestation, usage of fossil fuels, and mining activities in order to protect our ice sheets from vanishing entirely.
Now, let us focus on solving the actual problem in the least possible way we can do. As Filipinos, we can raise awareness and take action by educating other Filipinos about the serious impacts of melting polar ice caps. We can make use of facts, data, and compelling stories to highlight the urgency and importance of protecting polar ice caps from melting completely. We can also work together by engaging with other communities that share the same goal as us, and by getting others to collaborate with us. We also need businesses and other large organizations to persuade, so we can all together support initiatives such as renewable energy development, carbon reduction targets, and waste reduction measures. As responsible citizens of the Philippines, we have roles to maintain peace and order in our country. That is also the purpose of implementing laws to the public. Respecting and obeying the law is a fundamental to maintain peace in our country. We should also respect diversity, that each one of us has different opinions and we cannot force them to agree with us all the time. But we must avoid discrimination and hate speech toward anyone at any cost, as this may cause even more conflicts. Lastly, practicing good governance. As Filipinos, it's important that we become a responsible and informed citizenship by participating in elections, staying informed about government policies and decisions, and advocating for good governance practices.